Hey, what are you doing here? Are you a ghost? I know there were one or two in this story, but I haven't seen any yet. Wait, no, you're not scary enough to be a ghost. What are you doing here? Wait, you don't even know what story we're in? This is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, one of the most beloved novels of our time, written by one of the most successful authors in British history. That seriously doesn't ring any bells? Okay, wait, we're gonna have to pause this. Hold on. I can't tell you the story of A Christmas Carol without giving you the proper context for it. It just wouldn't be right. So let's make a deal. I will tell you the story of A Christmas Carol and the story of Charles Dickens, and you will get to follow along on the magical journey. Sound like a plan? Okay, awesome. Okay, let's get out of this place before it gets too scary. Whew, good to be out of that frigid old apartment, wasn't it? Now, as I was saying, I want to tell you a little bit about Charles Dickens before I tell you the story of Christmas Carol. So Charles Dickens was born in 1812 to a pretty well-off family. His father was an officer in the army, but he was pretty irresponsible with the money that he did make. So his family spent a lot of time going in between middle class and lower class. When he was a kid, he wanted to go to school regularly, but he often had to take breaks to go work in a factory to support his family, which he really hated. But it gave him a good idea of what it was like to be in poverty in the UK when he was a kid. Then as he grew older, he decided to go into reporting. He worked as a clerk at a solicitor's office, he worked as a reporter for a newspaper, and he worked as a reporter for the actual British Parliament. Being surrounded by all of these people with lots of money and power made Charles Dickens kind of develop this distaste for people in the upper classes who treated the lower classes like dirt. His experiences in poverty and as a witness to the failing judicial system gave him a lot to work with when he decided to become an author. In all of his works, in any Dickensian narrative, as we call them, basically you're going to see this kind of ongoing theme of lower class people, first of all, being given humanity and dignity by the author and narrator, and second of all, you're going to see lots of wealthy people being almost cartoonishly evil. These two complementary themes of humanitarian love and societal evil are evident in all of his work, but perhaps the most on-the-nose one is A Christmas Carol. Wait, is that a Christmas party? We should totally go in. Come on. Oh, it's fancy in here. Glad I had my party clothes. Now that we're all warm and we're out of the street, let's talk a little bit about the actual story of A Christmas Carol. So, A Christmas Carol follows Ebenezer Scrooge, a businessman who basically doesn't like Christmas. In fact, he hates the charitable attitude that everybody has around the holiday. The story starts on actual Christmas Eve when he is working the full day and runs into a bunch of people who either ask him for money or ask him to come visit for a party or generally want him to be charitable in some way. He denies them all. He calls Christmas a humbug. He's very selfish. He has a hard time thinking about other people's needs and wants. After his day is over, he goes to bed at his apartments. However, he gets haunted by the ghost of Robert Marley. Now, Robert Marley was Scrooge's previous business partner, but Robert Marley as a ghost appears to him covered in chains. And Marley warns Scrooge that he forged those chains in life because of his lack of love and care. And he warns Scrooge that he will be visited by 3 ghosts. And over the course of the evening, he's going to have to learn to change his ways or his life is going to turn out terribly. Of course, Scrooge is terrified and he asks Marley not to do this, but we as the audience are about to see that these ghosts are not there to scare Scrooge, they're just there to change his mind. After a little while, a clock tolls 1, and the first ghost appears to Scrooge. This is the ghost of Christmas Past. The Ghost of Christmas Past is really weird looking in the novel. He's described as looking both like a child and an old man. He's misty and dressed in white, and he kind of glows like a candle. And he brings Scrooge into the past to look at memories of his previous Christmases. Scrooge was not like a super happy child. He was often neglected during Christmas and was left at his own schoolhouse. And then as the years go by and as he gets older, we see the neglected boy fall in love with a woman named Belle. Belle was his fiancée and he was supposed to marry her, but Scrooge kept putting off marrying Belle because he wanted to wait till he and his bride-to-be were in a stronger financial situation, which really frustrated Belle because she wanted to be married to him because she loved him and not because of his money. Eventually, she broke off their engagement and Scrooge basically lost out an entire world of community and love because he was too worried about making money. After he's dropped off by the Ghost of Christmas Past, the next person who shows up is the Ghost of Christmas Present. The Ghost of Christmas Present is described as an enormous red-haired giant who has a beautiful robe and everywhere he goes fills the room with beautiful food and smells and music. He's basically Christmas spirit come to life. When he visits Scrooge, instead of seeing things from the past, he sees people in the present day celebrating Christmas, the people that he knows in his life. First, he sees his nephew Fred having a Christmas party, and it's really delightful. It's beautiful, it's full of friends. Scrooge was invited to this party earlier, and he denied the invitation. So seeing everyone have such a beautiful time really kind of hurts his feelings a little bit, but he's also very excited to be seeing what they're doing. That is, until they play a game, a guessing game, where they have to guess an animal, and someone is describing something that is cruel, that is unseemly, that is selfish, and it turns out the thing they were describing was Scrooge. It's a bit of a reality check for him. After he visits his nephew, Scrooge spends a lot of time watching Bob Cratchit in his home. Bob Cratchit was his employee, and he gave him the day off for Christmas only after a lot of begging, and he basically pays Cratchit nothing. So his family is very poor, but they're very happy, very excited about having a meal together, and all of his children are gorgeous, but his most beloved child is a little kid named Tiny Tim. He has a crutch, and he's usually very sick. Scrooge sees this kid and thinks he's kind of pathetic, but Tiny Tim has lots of positivity and enjoyment and seems to really get a lot out of his life and out of Christmas season. He's the most hopeful kid that Scrooge has ever seen, and he kind of immediately loves him and cares about his well-being. But the day can't last, even though it's wonderful. As the day goes on, the Ghost of Christmas Present becomes an old man, and he begins to disappear. Scrooge tells him he doesn't want to leave this beautiful, happy day, but the Ghost of Christmas Present warns him that it's not all good. Near the end of their time together, he opens his robe and reveals two gross, heartbroken, needy, starving children, and he calls these children ignorance and want. These children are the children of mankind itself, and it's true for him that even though Christmas is beautiful and warm, the presence of these needy, helpless children kind of has to exist at the same time. And it gives Scrooge another reality check that if he doesn't change his ways, he will be contributing to the general misery of mankind and of his community. Not to scare you, but this is the part of the story where things get a little bit dark. After he's visited by the Ghost of Christmas Present, Scrooge is visited by the final ghost, the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is terrifying to Scrooge. He's a tall, shadowy figure with a hood, and he can't see his face at all. He doesn't even talk. All he does is point the way to Scrooge and shows him visions of a Christmas that has yet to come. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come shows Scrooge several people on this future Christmas day. First, he shows him a group of grave robbers who are trying to sell wares that Scrooge recognizes from his own home. Then he sees a group of fancy businessmen leaving a funeral, and they're all grumbling about how they were promised that lunch would be provided. It's implied that that's the only reason that they came. Scrooge asks the spirit to show him a group of people who at least have fond feelings about the man who has passed away. And the spirit shows him a young couple who were worried about paying off their rent and are now glad that their landlord passed at the time that he did, meaning that they have more time to scrounge up the money that they need. Then he sees the Cratchit family. Instead of the happy-go-lucky group that he saw before, the entire family is devastated and still grieving. In the interim between this time and the time that we just visited, Tiny Tim passed from his ailments. The family is heartbroken, and so is Scrooge. He asks the spirit not to show him any more, but there is one more vision that Scrooge has to see. Against his will, the spirit takes Scrooge to a gravesite where he sees his own name etched upon a stone. It was he that died this day. When Scrooge sees his name upon the stone, he's terrified. He begs for more time, and this is my favorite part of the book, so I'm going to read it to you out loud. He says, "I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone." Scrooge thinks he's lost everything. But when he wakes up in the morning, he finds that he's back in his bed, that everything's back to normal, and that he still has a chance to change his ways. So he spends his Christmas day doing only kind things. He gives amazing amounts of money to the charitable businessmen who came by before asking for donations. He buys an enormous roast turkey for the Cratchit family and sends it to them anonymously. He tips the delivery boy heavily, and it says in the book, he kept Christmas in his heart all the year, and he helped the Cratchit family. He improved Bob Cratchit's salary by a huge portion, and that allowed him to save Tiny Tim's life. The story of Christmas Carol is a story about Victorian struggle. It's about class struggle, and it's about Charles Dickens' own experiences with poverty and the failure of judicial systems. But it's also a magical Christmas ghost story that's been popular for generations and has continued to resonate even when things have changed a lot in our world. Now I've got to get back to reading. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye!